If you're looking for some tips, tricks, and all the beginner's advice that we wish we knew when first playing Forspoken, well then you're in the right place. A big thank you to Square Enix for giving us the game so we can bring you guys this content as well. I've actually beaten the game already, so I'm quite familiar with the mechanics, the open world, and so on, and that's why I really wanted to share with you guys the things I've learnt along the way to make your life so much easier when you play. So if you want to be informed about in-game things that will benefit you, but without spoiling anything, then this one is for you. Before we jump into it, I do want to know what kind of open world game player you are, because this will impact how you progress in Forspoken, which we'll touch on later. Do you plan to clear everything on the map before moving on, or do you ignore it all? Let me know down below in the comments. And make sure to click like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content from us so you don't miss out in the future. The very first thing that I want to emphasize to you all is the mana nodes. These are glowing bluish white pillars of light that you will find literally everywhere scattered around the world. These often follow a path or trail of some kind that kind of guides you around an area as you parkour, and some are bunched in a dense area. These are important and one of the few things that I will recommend you guys actually do and go out of your way to collect while you explore. You see, when you run over these, they'll give you a single mana point each. This seems negligible, but you will find that this adds up quite a lot over time. You see, mana is effectively your level up currency, and it's different from XP, but I would say more important. XP will level you up, which grants you around 10 to 13 or so mana each time, but you can collect way more of this just by running around the map when you see them. You'll be able to use this mana to learn new spells and powers, or even get the next level of an existing spell. The thing is, as you get more powerful, the spells can start costing upwards of 70 or 100 mana to unlock, so leveling up and getting 10 to 13 mana isn't gonna cut it. So if you spot mana nodes as you're playing, my advice to you is that it's highly worthwhile collecting them before you move on. Next up is a setting that I wish I turned on earlier, and honestly I think it should have been on by default. As you may already know, when you cast a support spell with the left trigger, it will go on cooldown, and then you have to hold L1 and awkwardly switch to the next spell mid-combat, and honestly it just kind of ruins the flow and pace of fighting. Also, most support spells can basically be fired back to back in a sort of fire and forget fashion without much lost in terms of timing or positioning of the spell. So this setting will automatically switch the support spell to another one once the one you've casted goes on cooldown. This just makes the combat way more engaging and visually spectacular, as you're not constantly pulling up a menu mid-fight and pulling yourself out of that battle. So it's definitely worth turning this on and trying it out if you haven't already. Next up, when in the early to mid game and exploring, you're very likely going to encounter some unique looking mutated monsters. The thing is, this is an open world game, and much like other games, the creators pretty much want you to go back and explore past areas later once you become more powerful. Well, these mutant monsters are super powerful early on, and it's not only difficult, but it's going to take forever if you want to kill them the first time you encounter them. They're resistant to your early spells, and until you unlock other elemental types that will actually damage them, you're not going to get very far. So if you see these mutated monsters, don't feel bad if you can't beat them. You're meant to go back later on when you have more spells. Now we need to talk about the Belfries. Out of all of the things on the map, these are your biggest friend. They will allow you to scan the entire area and mark everything that you see on your map. So if you see one of these in a new area, or one that you just haven't gone to yet, go to these first and you will easily be able to see everything that you can do in the vicinity of it. And for this next one, do you remember earlier on when I asked you how you like to play open world games when it comes to doing everything before moving on or skipping it all? Well, I asked this for a reason, because you see, at the beginning of the game you only have access to the rock or purple type magic, and you have limited parkour moves. Honestly, if you've played and felt that the combat and movement felt like it was missing something, well, it's because it is, and it gets very repetitive and boring after a while just with this skill set. Of course, play the game however you have fun, but if you do focus on progressing the story until you unlock the next type of magic, you will have a much better time, not only in the variety of combat spells that you have, but also for parkour and map traversal. You'll get better traversal things at this point, so I highly suggest not doing too much early on until you have the next type of magic. You could easily end up spending 20 or 30 hours doing things in the world before getting this next magic type and the extra traversal and parkour options. So in my opinion, it will be much more fun to just progress until you unlock it and then go back and do those things later. As mentioned previously, for a chunk of the game you will only have access to the purple rock magic. So I'm going to suggest to you guys a few spells that I think were the better ones to begin with. The burst shot is my preferred offensive spell. Holding down the right trigger will build up a powerful AoE blast that deals deals good damage and knocks most things over, which leads to a free takedown, and since takedowns heal you, it's even better. Remember, you can also tap R2 a couple times and then hold it down to have an instant full power charge blast at the end of a combo. This is by far the most powerful combo you can do early on in my experience. Your ultimate Genesis is also a good upgrade choice, as it's a powerful move that will always be useful throughout the entire game. They do however get very expensive to max out, so this one might take a while to upgrade. The Disperse skill is also very powerful as it gives you a flower turret. You start out with this one, but the turret is very strong, so definitely try to use this as often as you can. After this though, the Tendril skill line and the two after it are awesome offensive support spells. They're also quite fire and forget, which is brilliant in the midst of combat. The Tendril will spawn a massive AoE vine attack around you that knocks enemies back and heals you for a portion of the damage. Implants will debuff an enemy, which causes your follow-up hits to deal even more damage. And Prime is a very powerful AoE knockback trap that's very easy for enemies to trigger. So when it comes to unlocking things, I suggest you unlock these first. If you found these beginner tips helpful, definitely show support by clicking like down below and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next gaming update from us here on the channel. And the two videos on screen now, I think you'll really enjoy if you did enjoy this one. Of course, you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you like this one, you're probably gonna like these ones too. And make sure to tell us what you think after watching in the comments down below.